Great. Greetings, City of Muskegon mayoral and commissioner candidates, voters, and guests. My name is Victoria Vuletich, and I am your host and your moderator for tonight's 2021 Meet the Candidate Forum. I was invited to host tonight by Chris Willis, chair of the Beechwood Bluffton Neighborhood Association, the BBNA, on behalf of the Neighborhood Associations of Muskegon. NAM is comprised of representatives from each of the City of Muskegon's 15 neighborhood associations, representing a geographically distinct neighborhood within the city. As an educator, coach, and practitioner in the field of ethics, it is my responsibility tonight to ensure this forum is conducted fairly and with civility. To accomplish those goals, this forum will be highly structured. After introductions, I will alternate questions between the 4 commissioner candidates and the 2 candidates for mayor. The questions have been submitted in advance and were chosen to represent the diverse concerns of voters across all of Muskegon neighborhoods. All candidates will be hearing the questions for the first time tonight. When called on, each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the question. At the end of the forum, each candidate will also have an additional 3 minutes to present their closing comments. In order to ensure each candidate has equal time, we are unable to hold an open question and answer session tonight. However, Chris Willis will be monitoring the live webinar chat. She will compile all questions and present them to all candidates following this event, so they may follow up using their individual communications channels. You are also encouraged to reach out to the candidates directly, and we will be supplying their contact information. One final word before we move to introductions. It is important to note that this is not a debate. The purpose of tonight's forum is to ensure, in the limited time we have available, that each candidate has an equal opportunity to give you some insight into who they are, what they stand for, and if elected, how you can expect them to guide the City of Muskegon over the next 4 years. When we accomplish that goal, I believe our candidates will join me in acknowledging that you, Muskegon voters, will all be winners tonight. And I'm experiencing the first technical difficulty of the night. There we go. Now I can advance my screen. So we will now move to the portion of the program where candidates introduce themselves. And so we're going to start with the commissioner candidates, and we'll start with Ms. Gorman. So Ms. Gorman and subsequent candidates, as I prompt you, please state your name and the position you are running for. And in 10 words or less, please state what you believe is the greatest issue facing Muskegon over the next 4 years. So we'll start with Ms. Gorman.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rachel Gorman, and I am a candidate for Commissioner at Large in the City of Muskegon. What I believe is the greatest issue facing Muskegon over the next 10 years is that after 70 years of population decline, managing rapid population growth.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, Ms. St. Clair.
My name is Rebecca St. Clair, and I am running for Commissioner at Large. Muskegon must become where both restaurant owners and dishwashers thrive.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Page.
Yeah, my name is Jack Page. I'm a candidate for Commissioner at Large, City of Muskegon. And I think the most challenging issue we have in the next 4 years is what has been challenging for many years. It's transparency and accountability.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sybenga.
Hello, I'm Dan Sybenga, and I'm running to be reelected as City Commissioner at Large. I believe the greatest issue facing Muskegon over the next 4 years is to continue the momentum to realize the full potential of our residents and city.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mr. Gawron. You're muted, Mr. Gawron.
Now the click worked. Hi, I'm Steve Gawron. I'm running to retain my seat as mayor of the city of Muskegon. And over the next 4 years, I think we really need to focus on building inclusive, attainable, and stable neighborhoods that welcome everyone.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Johnson?
Good evening, Victoria. Thank you for moderating tonight. I am Ken Johnson. I am an at-large commissioner for the city of Muskegon presently, and I'm running for mayor of this magnificent city. And the challenge that we face now and going forward is ensuring that progress for all with resources and opportunities being shared fairly.
Okay. All right, thank you. So now we will move into the question and answer section. Each candidate has 2 minutes to answer each question. So question number 1, and if at any time the candidates would like me to repeat the question, please let me know and I'll be happy to repeat it. Question number 1, a development proposal that comes before the city council may impact a neighborhood for generations. In a time of such rapid change, the stakes are high and emotions run higher. Some neighbors have raised concerns about contentious issues brought forward at a work session and too quickly put to vote without adequate opportunity for public consideration and comments. So let's begin with the mayoral candidates. As mayor, how do you propose to facilitate public input and improve transparency and trust around city decisions and actions? Please give specific examples. And we'll start with Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. I will just use an example as to what had transpired earlier this year, which involves a parking expansion project at Pure Marquette Park, a beloved beach and a jewel for our community. And when that came to us, I requested that our DPW go out and stake the property there so that our residents and commissioners could see the impact on our beach from that expansion of parking, which was going to be up to 40 feet of asphalt onto our beach. And also asked our DPW director, Leo Evans, who was gracious enough to make himself available to our public. And residents came out, not just from the Beechwood Bluff neighborhood, but from Glenside, Lakeside, and the interior of our city to learn about that project, what that entailed in terms of expanded parking and a potential bike pathway, and the elimination of several trees that were dear to many people in our community. And so I was proactive in facilitating that information and that engagement and receiving that feedback back from our residents to help inform my decision-making as a commissioner in terms of moving that project forward. And one of the things that came out of it was an alternative plan from one of our own residents, a retired architect, who had wanted to continue with the expanding parking so we could get more parking as the city desired, but have that parking stop at the sidewalk's edge, keep the row of trees that we had and have a natural median there so we could keep the mature trees we already have, add more trees there, and then have the bike pathway on the other side of the trees. And so that was a process of co-creation in my mind that was win-win-win. The city got what it wanted, which was expanded parking. We got a bike pathway, which is something that was born out of our previous sessions of envisioning with our community. And we got to save the trees in that process. That was very sentimental for many people. And so that process of co-creation is what I've endeavored to pursue and what I will continue to champion as mayor of Muskegon. Unfortunately, not enough of my fellow commissioners agreed with that process of co-creation. So we did not solidify that yet as how we're pursuing at Pure Marquette Beach.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gawron.
Thank you. Just last week, we had quite a rigorous interaction with folks from one of our eastern neighborhoods regarding a proposal from a substance abuse and counseling agency that wanted to build residential treatment housing within the neighborhood. The process began some months ago and was rigorously vetted, at least from the city standpoint. And there was much objection to the program. And in the end, it failed to be approved by the city commission, though it had been approved by the planning commission. But regardless of its failure, I think it was a great example of how much we put into the process of public hearing and listening to citizens, even to the point of perhaps tabling the matter and then seeing if the agency and residents within that area could come to some type of relationship building. But it was a very rigorous, very lengthy process. But I think it's an example of what you have to do regardless of, the outcome. I know that many of us were very supportive of the program, which is, essential to the area. However, it failed ultimately, but it was a great example, I believe, of how far we can and will and do take our interactions with the citizenry to really, attempt those relationships, building while we're gathering the information that we need, from our neighbors as to where they're at on a particular topic.
Right, thank you. Now the commission candidates. So from the commissioner's perspective, what specific steps will you take to ensure citizens understand the proposals that affect them and know that their input matters? And we'll start with Ms. Sanclair.
Thank you. One thing that I think is really important that I don't see often enough is allowing citizens and the commissioners to see important agenda items earlier to allow for more questions to be answered. Forums outside of the work sessions for public discussion would be a great opportunity for really hot button items. There has been a history of really heated issues coming before the commission without being rolled out to the larger community and without the commissioners having adequate time to really understand what the proposals are or what the different opportunities are. I think slowing things down could be really beneficial for hurt feelings to be avoided. Many times people understand that what they want is not necessarily the outcome that they're going to get, and they will take that better if they feel that they have been heard, at least listened to, and had their opinions and needs and desires considered by the commission. Currently, many really important items seem to be held until the very last minute, and then quick, let's move things along as fast as we can. And that really engenders mistrust in the community. People feel like there's continual effort to pull the wool over or get away with something. And I don't think that's the case. I think that it's a busy world and we're just trying to move things along. but sometimes deliberately slowing things down will get consensus much quicker.
Thank you. Mr. Page.
Yes, one of the things I noticed in attending meetings lately, and kind of to piggyback along what Ms. Sinclair was saying, is we're making decisions. Our housing decision was a $5 million decision to be used with ARP money. And we rushed that decision very quickly because we wanted to make sure we could get foundations in the ground before winter. While I understand the need for housing and everything, I mean, that was a quarter of our fund, or close to a quarter of our funding. And I believe that those things need to be vetted a lot more thoroughly, and have a lot more public input. One of our neighborhoods only had 8 responses to how the best way to spend all our COVID funding. And I think that we should have went out with further outreach, even door to door in some of those neighborhoods. We could have hired or used city staff or hired city staff to get a better understanding of what the communities wanted those funds spent on. And so I would like to see a lot more engagement that way. I think transparency wise, when the city shuts down forums, comments on Facebook and things like that, I don't think it builds trust. It basically goes the other way, and I'd like to see those things rectified.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sybenga, I'm sorry.
You did a great job. Thanks. This is an important question. And I think there's a lot of items that come to the City Commission. It sounded like you were particularly talking about a development issue. And for most issues, there's a process at City Hall. And I think in general, those processes work fairly well. As I understand it from developments, a lot of them end up going to the Planning Commission. Some of them require zoning changes, and that requires a public notice that is mailed to people. Often items are discussed at a work session and then brought to a general session. I think that that's a great process, and I think that consistency is important. We have a lot of items, and it's hard to know which ones to treat differently all the time. I do think that in that process, and sometimes this takes place, I know that staff encourage the department heads who are sometimes of the lead on a development to go to a neighborhood association meeting. I think that that's been used quite effectively over the last number of years for particular issues. And I think that, following the Open Meetings Act, I know that sometimes the agenda time is short, but I do think, posting it and then trying to get it out, the agenda items as best as possible, even if it is on a Thursday or a Friday ahead of meetings the next week. But I don't think there's been a couple times, I think, it was probably a mistake with camping at the Ovals to put it out on a Friday and expect a vote on a Tuesday. But I think in general, we adhere to a process for major developments that does allow input. And I think we could, work to improve that. But I think the basic process is working well.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Gorman.
Thank you. Just to add to the conversation, I think we've been hearing a lot about the processes, and, I certainly validate feelings of some of our residents sometimes feeling left behind, but I think a key to solving that problem has a lot to do with education about how the process works. I know I've learned a lot in my journey getting to the point to running for commissioner. So I think we have a huge opportunity and owe it to the residents in the city of Muskegon to help educate them on how that process works, so they're better informed and understanding when an issue is coming to work session, if it's moving forward, what that means. Uniquely, I think for all of the candidates at large, as we represent all the constituents in the city of Muskegon, we also have other commissioners on the commission that represent ward-specific residents. And I think there's a huge opportunity to make sure whoever is elected to commissioner at large, to make sure they're working together with those other commissioners, and and better understanding what their ward's unique needs are. We don't all communicate the same way, which means we all need to receive information differently. What a great time in history right now to understand like what better channels of communication are available. As far as like this scenario in general, I think there's also always an opportunity to ask that developer how they're engaging with our community. I think our city commission and staff have done a good job as we vet those developers to make sure they have a vested interest in our community, and that means getting a vested interest and support from the residents here.
Thank you. All right, we will move to our second question. Thank you, candidates. Question number 2, and again, if any of the candidates would like me to repeat these, just let me know. Muskegon is currently among the most racially and economically diverse communities on the Lake Michigan shoreline. However, across the country, cash investors are shutting out new working class home buyers. In addition, many fear the rapid development of high-end housing threatens to displace long-term full-time residents through gentrification and higher taxes. So we'll begin with the commission candidates. What do you believe is the city's role in helping elderly and economically vulnerable renters and homeowners stay in their homes so they can benefit from the good things that come from community improvements? And we'll start with Mr. Page.
Yeah, I definitely see the gentrification firsthand in the neighborhood where I live in, because I'm close to Pure Marquette Park, and I've watched the home values around me skyrocket within the last 10 years. And every time a home sells now in my neighborhood, it basically flips over to become a Airbnb seasonal rental. So the feelings down here in the Bluffton neighborhood are mixed. It's both an engine to help home values and everything like that, but people are literally being priced right out of their neighborhoods that they traditionally lived in at this point. One of the suggestions I had for at least home purchase and buying is as we were looking at our ARP funds and everything, was to scale back our 5 million proposal to 4 million and place an additional $1 million to pump up our first time home buyer program that's already on the books. Because that way it would, that inclusion would help everybody or any place in our city that is trying to purchase a home in any neighborhood in our city. It would help those residents get into those homes. Our current cap on our first time home buyer program is $5,000, and that barely covers closing costs at this point. So I would like to see some of that money transferred to not just help those specific homes and building, which we desperately need, don't get me wrong, but to help buyers across our city, not just those specific homes.
Thank you. Mr. Sybenga.
Sure. Housing is certainly a complicated issue. It's probably the biggest market in the country, with, you know, a household's, what their biggest investment is their home, and one of their primary concerns month to month is how they're going, where they are and maintaining their home. So I think that we have to have strategies that to the question, you know, for elderly and economically vulnerable renters and homeowners, I think we need strategies at a number of different levels to help folks where they're at. I think the city's done a great job with allowing and encouraging affordable housing developments. There's over 1,000 affordable housing units in the downtown area. And there's been new ones just built that opened in the last 2 weeks. So I think we're doing a lot to do that. So I think in addition to that, we need to help folks that are in homes with repairs. That's a big concern for people who are in a home. Also, we're fortunate that we have, you know, Prop A, which doesn't cause property taxes to raise exorbitantly. So for folks in that band, definitely, I think that that's a benefit. And combined with funds to help renovate homes, that would be good. And then, you know, we need to help build new homes for people who, we've had a lot of disinvestment. There's a lot of vacant lots in the city of Muskegon. And I think there's a real opportunity to build homes that are affordable at some level to folks. And so those are a number of things that I think we could contribute on the housing front. But we're going to have to work with our partners, nonprofits, the financial institutions, state and federal groups that play a big role in housing.
Thank you. Ms. Gorman.
Thank you. Yeah, you know, as exciting as new home builds are in the city of Muskegon, one important thing is to make sure we're keeping residents where they're at now. And that's been something part of my platform since the beginning of my candidacy. You know, in the city of Muskegon, we're really lucky that we do have awesome programs like emergency assistance to help some of our residents who, like we're talking about, may be economically vulnerable, to make sure they're making those monthly payments they need to stay in their homes. We also have a really cool vinyl siding program. We talked in the Nelson neighborhood about sometimes we have homes in our city that have really good bones, but could use a little love on the outside. And there's opportunities for residents in the city of Muskegon to access those resources. But I often joke, our residents shouldn't have to be an attorney to figure out how to take advantage of those programs. So I think eliminating some of those barriers to current programs is a huge opportunity to make sure homeowners are staying in the city of Muskegon. And when we move on and accomplish or remove those barriers, I think there's huge potential to support other programs in a similar fashion to make sure people have proper roof repair opportunities, make sure their homes are being properly drained, and other housing needs. And these are ways, I think, while we're seeing the new home builds in the city of Muskegon, we can also make sure we're supporting our residents where they're at now.
Thank you. Ms. St. Clair.
Thank you. This question is particularly near and dear to my heart as a social worker who works with really high needs and low support individuals. You know, my team right now has no less than 6 individuals, young people who are unhoused, living in cars, you know, living on a porch, pitching a tent in someone's backyard, you know, sleeping in a cellar that isn't actually a basement. So while the idea of repairing homes for homeowners is wonderful, there's a large population of unhoused individuals that don't have any roof over their heads. You know, a couple of the candidates spoke of the large amount of low income and affordable housing in the city. But Nelson Place is one of the larger units downtown. And while I was out knocking doors, I encountered someone that lives there and told me, hey, I got a letter saying my rent's going up, that in 3 years it's going to be market rate and I can barely afford what I'm paying now. You know, she was paying $700 or $800, which is not super affordable. If you're on SSI, you're getting $700 or $800 a month. So that's not affordable. I think that we get confused about what is low income and what is affordable, because those are not the same thing, and we kind of lump it all together. But I'm just giving you problems, right? I'm not giving you the answers. You know, I think there's a lot of opportunity with the art dollars, but I also think that the city needs to look at what's happening with short-term rentals. I don't know how many are in the city, and I don't know that the city knows how many are in the city. I don't believe they're capturing any tax dollars from that. I know that you're supposed to register it, but I don't know that there's any real teeth to that. I think that we probably could do some incentivizing to keep people from buying houses and flipping them to short-term rentals, to the benefit of the people who already live here who can't find housing.
Thank you. Now the mayoral candidates. How do you propose to make sure Michigan does not lose its Muskegon does not lose its multicultural identity and broad-based economy to gentrification. We'll start with Mr. Gawron.
Thank you. As we've been engaged in these housing info programs and rehabs, we're learning what we have to do to, balance. A lot of the newest housing is, occurring on what used to be foundry fill and sandboxes. We're attempting in our infill housing to, reintroduce houses on empty lots, which used to be active neighborhoods. And we need to do this in order to rebuild the value of the place we live. And we operate on taxes. And in order to do all the things we want to do, we need more neighbors, living in Muskegon, to help, cover the cost of what we need to do in supplying our services and the like. But in the meantime, we also need to keep an eye on, and staff has and is, and so is the commission, on those individuals and families that are our most vulnerable and often face homelessness. And that's why our continued outreach to those agencies, which are key players in helping aid those most vulnerable individuals at the state and the federal level, whether it's MISTA or HUD, which helps fund some of our own programs, such as, our community neighborhood services and our home programs. They need to continue to become more effective in interacting with municipalities. And that's not just an issue that's facing Muskegon. With my work through the Michigan Municipal League on its board of trustees and also the Urban Core Mayors, we are doing all that we can to light a fire legislatively at the state level to really get a municipal focus from our state capital and from DC on this nationwide issue of lack of housing for our most vulnerable, as well as everybody in between leading up to, those that may have the income, to purchase a house, but that's becoming harder and harder for people across the board. There are currently ARP funds coming from the feds to the states that are helping with mortgage, rental, and housing programs, but we need a better means of getting those funds out to the individuals, like a clearinghouse. We really do. It gets very, very complicated because of the different levels of governmental agencies, but we will continue to push and do our best to, create our strategy in order to address the needs of those who are most at risk, while at the same time continuing to help build value in neighborhoods and help people realize and appreciate for the first time some wealth in their home and the possibility of being able to do a wealth transfer to their children, because Muskegon's been so undervalued and devalued for so many years. We're trying our best to build it back up, but we really, really need to, balance how we do that so that, there is a benefit and a focus on all folks and their needs for housing. But we will continue on and build our partnerships with federal and state agencies and the developers that are capable of, developing those lower income communities for those individuals. And we need to get,
I'm sorry, I need to cut you off there so that we remain fair for all the candidates in terms of their time. Thank you.
I need an hour on this one.
I know all of these topics we could talk for quite a bit about. They're very important topics. All right, we'll move to question number 3.
Excuse me, Victoria, I didn't have an opportunity to answer that question.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Mr. Johnson. Yes, let's go back. I'm sorry, I apologize.
Oh, no worries. A lot of answers coming at you tonight. So thank you. It's a great question. It's something that we absolutely need to be mindful of as a city going forward, as we're seeing this growth, this new development happening in our city, that we're not leaving people behind that have been here and contributed to the fabric of this community for so many years. And so that's an incredibly important question, something that requires concerted and comprehensive and continuous action on elected officials, appointed officials within City Hall, and at all levels of government, city, state, and federal. You talk about the diversity of this community. It's beautiful. We have an awesome diversity here, and it's one of our strengths. And I love the beauty of Muskegon's mosaic. One of the things that can help ensure that that diversity is reflected in how we function and how we govern is ensuring that people from all walks of life are represented, not only in elected bodies, but in bodies that the commission appoints. We have numerous different boards, committees, and commissions that help advise the city on some of those programs that were spoken about earlier, in terms of like home repairs and first-time home buyers assistance and the like. And so we need to ensure that people from all walks of life that have a seat at that table, that have an opportunity to inform how we proceed, and so that their concerns and their priorities are reflected there. We also need to be tackling this from every angle point possible, not just about providing subsidized housing or low-income housing, although that's very important. I know when I got on the commission, there was some talk about we have too much low-income housing downtown. We were oversaturated, let that go elsewhere. But it's important that we move forward and do that, particularly as we're seeing some of these developments reverting, no longer being targeted or available to low-income residents, and now going market rate. So we need to be making an extra effort that we are working with developers and availing themselves of opportunities with low-income tax housing credits and the like, so that we can get more development of lower-income housing, and then continue our program with market rate housing and housing that then is available at certain AMI thresholds, so that we can develop housing at all price points for residents, and so people can remain here. But also we need to be providing resources and connecting our residents to opportunities so that they can get new skills, uplift themselves, or pursue new businesses, become entrepreneurs themselves, and so they can raise their wealth so that they can afford those market rate housing that's happening in our city as well. So we need to be tackling on both sides of the equation there. But another thing is, as part of having housing at all price points, we need to be considering smaller homes, because right now there are limitations on how small homes can be built here in the city of Muskegon. And something that I've advocated previously of where might this be opportunity? Sometimes people call them tiny homes or whatnot, has not something that we've been pursued or received at the city commission, but it's something that we should be considering, because at the end of the day, housing is incredibly important, and that is fundamental to our residents' well-being. And so housing for all.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Johnson. I'm sorry that we have limited time. We want to remain fair. So now we'll move to question 3. Public access to Muskegon Lake and Lake Michigan is a rare and valuable asset. Our abundant shoreline provides economic opportunity and improves the quality of life for all Muskegon residents. So we'll begin with the mayoral candidates. What is your opinion about waterfront development so far? Is it too much, just right? And what do you think the future should be for public waterfront access versus private or commercial shoreline development? Mr. Johnson, I had you wind up before, but now you're starting again. So thank you.
All right, thank you. We are a Great Lakes state and a city that is on a lake, and one of our largest rivers in this state as well, Muskegon Lake and Muskegon River. And so access to our waterways is so important, and it is at the core of what we are doing as a city, also in terms of making ourselves a major tourist destination, embracing the recreational resources that we have here. And over in years past, decades ago, Muskegon Lake and our waterways were polluted. They were marketed as dumping grounds for industry. And we've come full circle there, and tremendous resources, federal and state dollars and local dollars, have gone into cleaning up those waterways and reclaiming our shorelines. And so as part of that, that's unlocked new opportunities and prosperity. And so we need to be careful as we move forward with new development that it's not just exploitative, but additive, and that our residents maintain access to those waterways to enhance their quality of life. And something that I am almost a broken record on the commission when new developments are happening, that, hey, our Imagine Muskegon Lake plan says anytime that access is taken away someplace, we must add it elsewhere. And so I reinforce that. But I'm not content with just the status quo of, okay, this is how much we have now, and this is how much we're going to maintain. We should be expanding access, and we should be enhancing access, not just, okay, you can walk up to the water's edge, but there's nothing to do. You can't launch, you can't get into the water, you can't fish from there. We need to be enhancing how people interact with our waterways, not just being able to see our water from afar.
Thank you. Mr. Gawron.
Thank you. I concur with much of what Mr. Johnson has just said. Again, we're in one of those positions where the lion's share of the lakeshore has been tied up in the private sector for 200 years. But that doesn't mean that we're not in a position to partner with or to dialogue with in order to see that these developments can, involve a community asset element. And, I was very heartened, and I think the majority of the commission was, with a recent proposal down on Lower Western Avenue that would, in effect, double the amount of public access in and through and on that private development. And it would be just a remarkable addition and asset to the community, should it, come to fruition. But at every opportunity, I also agree that whatever holdings we have, we need to continue to improve, protect, and maintain them. We have just under 4 miles of beach, and I think people have to remember that. And all told, we have 1,000 acres of open and recreational parkland, and a portion of that is the 12 miles of our rec trail. It'd be nice to see a lot of that rec trail taken off of one of our city streets and actually placed closer to the waterfront. But we need to look at every avenue, every partnership, every opportunity to see that as our lakefront is developed, that those developments are woven into the existing neighborhoods and actually become a part and parcel of life that exists here already and becomes an enhancement with that opportunity for public access or to our beautiful harbor.
Thank you. All right, our commissioner candidates. What areas of our shoreline should be open to future private or commercial development? And what would you like to see preserved for public waterfront access? And please give some specific examples. Mr. Sybenga, we'll start with you.
Sure. I'm very passionate about this issue. When I moved to Muskegon, I think the first thing I noticed was, wow, this is amazing. You can be within a walking distance of the water the whole length of the city. If you enter at the Cobb plant and go along Muskegon Lake all the way to the channel, you can be a stone's throw from the water. I think public access, kind of depends on what you like to do. I like to run, bike, kayak, boat, but I don't like to fish. So, I think the access depends a little bit on your taste and what you would like to do. I agree with Commissioner Johnson that we should take that into account and enhance access as much as we can and protect it. The idea of what areas should be open to future private or commercial development. I mean, there's so many different properties along our lakefront. I mean, we have at Lake Michigan, it's a charter park. So that's certainly a different take on it. That's a very special circumstance. Along Muskegon Lake, it's a lot longer, but there's a lot of different types of properties, some private, some public, some that are the city has an easement to. I wouldn't really want, I think that ones that are private, could be considered for commercial development. I think in the case of like Adelaide Point on Lower Western, negotiating with folks to achieve as much public access. Windward Point would be another example of that. But I do really think it depends on the development. I think you have to take it on a case-by-case basis and kind of understand like really clearly, what is the best part? What is the best part of this property? What would be the best enhanced access for people? What can we work out with the people who have an idea for this property? So I think that I would love to see more people on the bike path when I'm biking there. I would welcome more people accessing the waterfront in the many ways that they would like to, whether it's a Navy Pier style or activity, or however they would like to do that. So I'm excited. There's so much potential in this regard, and I look forward to seeing how this develops.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Gorman.
This is a tough question. And I think it's so difficult because uniquely in Muskegon, we all acknowledge what an incredible resource Muskegon Lake and Lake Michigan is to our residents and to the greater Muskegon County community. So, I want to acknowledge that you were looking for specific details of places that should be developed or swapped for commercial, and I just can't state that confidently. More so because I think uniquely sometimes word of mouth ideas about development can run crazy in our community, and I don't see benefit in that from tonight. I echo what's been stated though about current public access that I think is really critical and really depends on what waterfront access means to residents. I know I love the bike path, some people don't, but I think another part of this conversation we need to be aware of is making sure whenever there's opportunities for private or commercial development, there needs to be a net gain for the city and specifically our residents, because we quite frankly have too many residents that have never accessed our water, even though it's available to them. Again, what are we doing to remove the barriers to make sure they have transportation to get to the beach, to enjoy our incredible city and this unique natural resource we have?
Thank you. Ms. St. Clair.
Thank you. I am remembering going to Miami and Fort Lauderdale and having an Airbnb that I thought was right on the beach, and I could not get to the water. I could hear it, but I couldn't see it. I couldn't get there because there was so much development. And I have carried that with me. Muskegon has such beautiful shoreline, and there is so much opportunity to either do it really well or to really mess it up. And at this point, I think we're doing a pretty good job. I would like to see development continue where the development will benefit with cleanup. That's one of the things that I really like about Adelaide Point and Windward, is that is currently blighted property that is not serving the community. And I think that with the development is going to come an improvement to the city, above and beyond the property itself. I think that we have a lot of opportunity, but I think it's really important that we don't overdevelop. I think that we need to be very cautious about what happens with Pier Marquette. I would not like to see that become an Atlantic City or a Navy Pier. I think that there's a place for that, but not necessarily here. I think that we can do things cautiously with a lot of public input, because as Dan mentioned, it is a charter park. And we do need to be mindful of how we proceed with that.
Thank you. Mr. Page.
Well, yeah, one of my reasons for running was protect our parks. And I believe that the development, especially in any of our charter parks, needs to come before a vote of the people, before any of it happens. It's what our charter says. We seem to meander our way around it when we want to get something done, and I'm strictly opposed to that. I remember speaking when my stepfather was on the commission, was vice mayor for a long time, before the Sappy and SD Warren plant was even getting torn down, about how Windward Point would be a 100-year decision that would affect this city for the next 100 years. I think as development moves into these areas, like Rebecca said, these blighted areas that aren't serving the community, we have a unique opportunity to place those things under a planned unit development to ensure that we have lakefront access for our citizens. So, and with the power of that PUD, we can assure that that these developments live up to the word. I'm greatly encouraged that Adeline Point wants to provide this access, but the devil's in the details. So, you know, I would like to see these things hashed out and put specifically into a PUD so it guarantees our people access, or our citizens access, for generations after we're all long gone.
Okay, thank you. So now we're going to move to a bonus question. And so how would you describe the line of authority between the city manager, the mayor, and the city commissioners? And so we will start with the commissioners, and let's start with Ms. Gorman.
Sure. Local government, particularly ours, is, you know, a unique structure of government to me. You know, the mayor serves alongside those commissioners to purposely run an effective city commission meetings, where I do see the role as a city manager to oversee their staff. Not that that's the gatekeeper between staff and commissioners, but ultimately the work that our incredible staff is doing is led under the direction of the city manager, who then in turn, you know, works with his authority alongside the commissioners to make sure there is a proper balance between the day-to-day and the direction, overall vision that the commissioners should be driving with input from the residents. So that is how I would describe those lines of authority.
Okay, thank you. Ms. St. Clair.
Thank you. With a setup such as ours, the city commission provides oversight and guidance to the city manager, who then provides oversight and guidance to the city staff. The mayor is in some ways, I'm not going to say a figurehead, because the chairman of a meeting is a very important role, or the chairperson of a meeting. So the mayor drives the tone and the agenda, which is very important in any institution. But one thing I would like to throw in there too that you didn't include is the authority of the public, because at the end of the day, the voters are the final authority, and they choose the elected government, who then chooses the city manager. So we are responsive to the public.
Thank you. Mr. Page.
Yeah, the city commissioners are basically the oversight for the city manager. And this is another reason that I listed transparency and accountability in my first statement was when the city manager or anybody in staff does something that's out of context, it's supposed to be the role of the city commission to make sure that that oversight is provided. We had spending irregularities in the last 4 years that obviously made a lot of news and a lot of headlines. And then what really angered me the most was then when it came time to find out if there was anything additional behind the scenes that we didn't know about spending wise, the commission voted to the commissioners, not all commissioners, but the commission majority voted not to have that audit. And to me, it's the city commissioners are supposed to provide oversight to the city manager and below. And I just feel that it hasn't happened to the degree it needs to. And that's one of the reasons I'm running.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sybenga.
Sure. We're governed by the city charter, which I just took a quick look at, and it's a strong manager, weak mayor system. The commission and mayor are elected by the people and represent the people, as many people have said, overseeing the city manager and by extension the staff. I think that there's a lot of policies that kind of outline when things are supposed to come to the commission, the things that the staff are supposed to do to get public input and, bring to the commission when it's appropriate. I think that our citizens value the history that we have as a government that functions this way. I think that there's a lot of professional expertise that comes from a strong manager, weak mayor system. I do think it's important for commissioners to have a broad view of what's happening and to understand their role, and also, to work together, which is something that has sometimes been lacking, to consult with each other. People seem to chafe at the term to be a team, but I think commissioners could do a better job of working things out and trying to compromise amongst each other if that's what's necessary. Because I think at the end of the day, the city commission is kind of is leading, and if we work together and provide that oversight, but also work together with staff, we can present a vision of government that's understandable to the people, and they see where we're going.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Gawron.
Thank you. We do have a strong manager form of government. This form of government was actually created in the state of Michigan by early Michigan industrialists when they saw some of the excesses, especially at the partisan level in some of the larger cities in Michigan, where somebody becomes a mayor and the next thing his brother-in-law is the chief of police and his nephew's the dog catcher. So it really was developed in order to address issues around cronyism and nepotism. And in most of the communities in Michigan that have this form of government, it's also nonpartisan in order to keep that level of interference, out of the way. Basically, I tell people when they ask what form of government we have, I say I'm chair of the board of directors. I'm one person, I'm one vote, and none of us have any more authority than the other, than the vote of the majority. Majority rules. And I think there's a lot of protection in this form of government. And there's also a great opportunity for the elected officials to take advantage of becoming expert students themselves alongside of our professional staff by educating themselves in municipal affairs and urban affairs and best practices and what's occurring nationwide in other municipalities that are beginning to really flower. And I would like to remark that Muskegon is gaining much notoriety, not just at the state level, but at the national level for the innovation of our staff and the support of our team on the commission. But that's kind of it in a nutshell, our form of government. So you won't see my nephew being appointed dog catcher, but we don't have dog catchers anyway in the city of Muskegon.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, so in state of Michigan, there are basically three types of municipal governments: a strong mayor system, a weak mayor system, and then a council or commission / manager system. And that's what the city of Muskegon has codified in our charter, is a commission manager form of government, in which case the city commission, as elected by the electors of the city, are their representatives at City Hall, and then hire a city manager who is the chief executive, chief administrator, who runs City Hall and government operations on a day-to-day basis. It is the commission that provides supervision and oversight to that manager, and as well as a few other positions that are codified in our city charter as being appointed by the city commission. That includes the city clerk, legal counsel, auditor, and our treasurer, finance director. And then we work as a team. You know, we are providing a direction and vision to our city manager and the rest of our employed and appointed staff. And we do, as Mr. Gawron said, we do have very capable and creative and smart and innovative people working at City Hall, and we are very blessed in that regard. And so when it comes to the mayor, yes, the mayor is a member of the commission, one vote, no difference than any other member. The mayor is presiding as chair of that commission and does have a responsibility in terms of setting the tone and the cadence of that commission and ensuring that a variety of voices and all of our elected representatives are being heard. Because at the end of the day, as was mentioned earlier, the people are at the top of this hierarchy. The people who are who we report to and who are most important in this dynamic, that we're serving their interests. But the mayor also has a special responsibility to ensuring, while the commission all has this collective responsibility, I believe the mayor has a special responsibility to ensuring that our policies are being followed and adhered to and respected. And so that's one of the reasons that motivated me to run to become mayor of Muskegon, because there were instances where our policies were not being honored and there was almost a dismissiveness of some of our policies when it came to purchasing, when it came to finance, when it came to the use of our economic development revolving loan fund. You know, having been exhausted to the benefit of 3 entities owned by people that don't live in our city, when that policy says it's supposed to be used to support local entrepreneurs and with a special emphasis on women and minority entrepreneurs, and that money didn't go to those pursuits. And so the mayor has a special responsibility ensuring our policies are being honored and working in concert with our commission to make sure that that's the case.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Johnson. I'm going to defer our closing question, which is a fun question that is designed to elicit a little bit more about you as people, and check in with Chris Willis here, who has been monitoring the chat feature, and check in to see if we have any questions for the candidates from our attendees.
I think we had, let me look here a minute. We do have a couple questions, but I'm not sure that we're going to have time to address all of them. There is a question regarding the fishermen's, the proposed swap of Fisherman's Landing. And there's another question about use of the American Rescue Plan funds for the Boys and Girls Clubs. One last question goes back to affordable housing, but I think we addressed that as far as we can address that in this forum tonight. So I'll bounce it back to you, Victoria.
Okay, well then we will move to our closing question. And this is designed for voters and citizens to get to know each of the candidates a little bit better. And the question is, what are your favorite places to spend time in Muskegon and why. So we will start with the commissioners, and we'll start with Mr. Sybenga.
Sure. Can I count all of them? Probably not. I live downtown Muskegon and work downtown Muskegon, so downtown is one of my favorite places. I love to take a walk in the evening or during a break in the day, just to stroll through our neighborhoods, our commercial streets, to see the vibrancy and the diversity of people enjoying their time outdoors in Muskegon. I mentioned already that I really appreciate outdoor recreation. The Lakeshore Bike Path, I'm probably on it 3 or 4 times a week. And every week, pretty much every weekend, our family makes it to Cruzy Park, Pier Marquette Beach, all year round. We love winter and love to hike any time of year. And so some of my favorite parts of town are where you can get out, see the water, feel the breeze, and enjoy a sunrise or a sunset.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Ms. Gorman.
First, we are obsessed with our neighborhood in Pigtail Alley on 2nd Street. Shout out to my neighbors. We just love living in Nelson neighborhood so much. But not just being downtown, but the people that surround us, being able to, we always joke with it's like being in the fifth, like being out in your yard, saying hi to everybody around town, saying hi to Greg on your way to work. So we love that. We, like many other people during COVID, got a puppy. So the dog park has been a long welcome addition to downtown Muskegon. Our dog Maple loves there. And so a pretty normal Saturday for us is taking her to the dog park, get some energy out, strolling down through a beautiful farmer's market. And then usually in the summer, Dan's like saying in the winter too, somehow ending up at Pier Marquette Beach to marvel at the natural resources we have in our cities. So those are just some of the favorite places in Muskegon, but like, I think we're all gonna hear, we have an incredible city and it's really hard to pick favorites.
Indeed. All right, Ms. St. Clair.
Well, I have to start off by saying on a Friday night, Hackley Stadium, go Big Reds. The farmer's market is one of my all-time favorite places in the city. I haven't been able to be there as much this summer because I've been out talking to people and doing other things, but typically on any given Saturday, you will see me there. Some of my favorite people are there. I love the atmosphere, the view, the humans, the music, and of course the food. I am a lakesider and I love going to Lakeside. We have some really fun little shops and neat venues there. And probably my favorite place is out on Muskegon Lake in my kayak.
All right, Mr. Page.
Yeah, I've got 3 of them. One is my normal dog walk through the back parts of Pier Marquette and Cruzy Park. I get to see all the vibrance of the beach and all the wonderful people enjoying it, but still have a little peace and quiet back up in the back dunes, watching everybody, seeing the waves crash. 2, being a chef, I have been locked at the hip with our new farmers market and kitchen 242 downtown. I've done probably 10 different events for the city down there, not only for the city, but private events also. Being a chef, working at downtown restaurants, I would always do 80% of my shopping for our restaurants was through the farmers market. So, and the 3rd one would have to be Muskegon Luge and Sports Park, where I've been coaching luge for 31 years. So I can put you on the sled on the fastest sport on ice.
Thank you. All right, let's move to the mayoral candidates. Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, I'm generally not one to have favorites in any regard, interestingly enough, but there's so much to love about Muskegon. I'm native here, born and raised here in Muskegon, grew up on the east side in the Sheldon Park neighborhood. So that's near and dear to my heart. and now presently live in the NIMS neighborhood on the west side of the city, where I serve on the NIMS Neighborhood Association board as vice president. So I enjoy walking our neighborhood and meeting our neighbors and delivering newsletters in the spring and the fall. But I love our Lakeshore bike trail. I love biking that and seeing just our community enjoying that trail and our lake. But I love getting on our lake, getting like Rebecca said, kayaking. That's one of my favorite activities is kayaking, getting on Muskegon Lake, getting on Muskegon River, and biking our trails. It's so fun. And farmers market. That's just so neat to see. So much hustle and bustle downtown at our farmers market. And I'd like to see some more enhancements there to make that even a better gathering space. But it's a phenomenal space. And that's one of the reasons why I volunteered last year throughout the pandemic every Saturday to provide those pandemic precautions to ensure that our community could continue to use that farmers market safely, and we could keep that market open because it is such an important access for fresh food and produce for our community, particularly since we do live in a food desert. And so there's just so much to love about Muskegon. We are truly blessed to be here, and I'm excited to move this community forward and share this with more people and invite more people into this community while preserving and respecting the fabric of this community as is and what makes Muskegon so magnificent.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Gawron.
Thank you. I like going to Marshfield because that's the neighborhood I grew up in, and it's nice to watch a baseball game. I miss my mom, who passed in January, but I still get over to Marshfield neighborhood to visit friends at the old home place. I love the NIMS neighborhood, which was actually the neighborhood my mom grew up in, and I ended up moving to. Founded the NIMS Neighborhood Association with other great neighbors, and was its president for well over a decade. And here in this beautiful neighborhood, Sue and I like picking up the rec trail here and walking it all the way out to the river mouth. And of course, if you're from Muskegon, you got to go for a sunset at Pere Marquette Park, or during the day, walk the loop behind the dune, which Sue and I do. But other places that I certainly love passionately are places I grew up in, like the Hackley Library and the Muskegon Museum of Art. And now I can fully replicate a Saturday afternoon to go to the Accidental Cafe and get ice cream and Occidental fudge like I did when it was on Western Avenue at the old hotel. And of course, the farmers market, which is our weekly giant extravaganza festival and family reunion, where we all go to reconnect and have a great time. And one of my great sources of pride, having been a real push and a force there of working with our partners and our donors to make that a reality in downtown Muskegon. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will now move to our prepared closing remarks. If my screen will let me advance the slide, we may have to do this without the benefit of a slide. Thank you, candidates, and thanks also to our sponsor, Neighborhood Associations of Muskegon, and our chief energizer, organizer, and tech guru, Chris Willis, for creating this event. And I would ask the candidates during their time with their closing remarks, we've been speaking, sometimes it's natural for us to speak in acronyms. And so you may, for the benefit of the audience who aren't familiar with what those acronyms stand for, you may want to use the full titles in your closing remarks. And since we are a little ahead of schedule, why don't we expand those to 4 minutes each? And we'll start with the mayoral candidates and Mr. Johnson.
Ken, you're muted.
Mr. Johnson, can you unmute? Mr. Johnson, I'm trying to unmute.
I'm here.
Oh, there you go. Okay,
Having
great.
technical issues over here.
Okay, yes, the tech gremlins are alive and well tonight.
All right. So I'm motivated to run by a love of Muskegon and for the love of us. I'm running for mayor of Muskegon to empower residents and champion progressive policies, support local businesses, and promote good governance. When it comes to good governance, we need greater transparency, accountability, and meaningful community engagement. And I believe a change is needed, as I've witnessed an inability or unwillingness to hold ourselves accountable, City Hall accountable, when funds have been spent unlawfully, city policies violated, and zoning ordinances ignored to benefit new development. Last year, the city's economic development and revolving loan fund was exhausted, with nearly $1 million going to out-of-town developers. Commitment to out-of-town developers. The largest amount issued was a long-term loan for $450,000, which was awarded a year ago for a project that's not broken ground yet. Notably, this loan did not receive approval by a 2/3 majority of the city commission as required by policy, yet was still dispersed. Had policy been honored, we could have been using this money to support local businesses and entrepreneurs as intended. Indeed, the fund's approved purpose is to support locally sited businesses with a special emphasis on minority and female entrepreneurship. Unfortunately, the city has not been living up to the fund's purpose. Muskegon deserves a mayor who will put our residents first and foremost while ensuring that public resources and opportunities are shared fairly and equitably. If elected mayor, I'll focus on good governance, increasing transparency in government, holding ourselves accountable, and pursuing meaningful community engagement so that residents can contribute to and take ownership of what's happening around them. Furthermore, I'll work to launch a comprehensive parks and recreation improvement program centered on residents so that our parks serve neighbors of all ages. To do so, I'd like to revive a citizen board to advise on our parks. Some ideas I have for potential park improvements include adding pavilions, free Wi-Fi, and community tool sheds. I'd also like to connect our Laketon and Lakeshore trails through downtown, bolstering our biking infrastructure and making our city center more accessible to surrounding neighborhoods. Another park priority would be to build a skate park plaza, making up for the fact that our previous park was gutted several years ago. Meanwhile, if elected mayor, I'll continue to be a champion for the environment. Having succeeded in upgrading our streetlights to LED technology, which is saving us more than $300,000 a year, I'd like to ensure all public facilities are energy efficient. And having restored curbside recycling to Muskegon, I'd like to see it improved and expanded. Additionally, I'd like the city to embrace renewable energy and electric vehicle infrastructure. We must also be vigilant in protecting our shoreline and waterways while working to enhance and expand public waterfront access for all. Most importantly, I'll work to ensure City Hall is receptive, responsive, and respectful to our residents. Together, let's cultivate a more inclusive, empowered, and harmonious community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Right, Mr. Gawron.
Thank you. My drive to ask for another term as mayor is formed as a lived experience, and one lived with, many of you right in front of me this evening. My partners on the city commission, friends I've known for a long, long time, like one of my favorite chefs, and those listening this evening. All of us Muskegonites, brand new and old timers. That's been the driving force for our involvement, is that involvement, our love of neighbor, our love of Muskegon. Again, that's the driving force for our involvements, often with each other, which I know has driven Muskegon to new growth and new energy. It's a we thing, not us versus them thing. It's we pulling together to continue on our positive trajectory. We can continue building relationships and resources needed to bring value and build this community. Admitting when we've done it well and celebrating, and admitting when we've made mistakes and don't do them again. All cities expand and contract, and Muskegon is once again expanding to a new future. New housing, new investment, new people coming in, a new opportunity for growth. And it's going to take an experienced leadership who understands the rich history of this community to make sure all of it's protected. And we grow and focus on including everyone at every level the best we can. Creating an environment where all have an opportunity to benefit. We got to do that together. We got to pull together. Look at the initiatives and the improvements, not just downtown, but in our neighborhoods, incremental though they may be. Look how long we've waited for this kind of investment in physical and yes, human capital and belief in who we are and what we can do. This is what we've worked for. This is our future changing right here and now, and it is bright as long as we hold hands and move forward together. Now, we've all pulled so hard on this rope. We should keep pulling, and I'm ready to keep pulling, doing my part as mayor for another 4 years. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Now for the commissioner candidates, Ms. St. Clair.
Thank you. I never meant to run for office, but I was asked to consider it. I agreed to think about it and realized I needed to run, even though it was scary and difficult. I've had the opportunity to talk to so many people in the past few months. I have learned that people love Muskegon fiercely. This gritty, scrappy, and beautiful city is filled with incredible people who care so much. I've also learned that not everyone feels that the city government is on their side. Many people talked about not feeling heard. They feel shut out of decisions and opportunities. People talked about the city closing off communication rather than opening dialogue with the citizens. Two-way communication is the only way the city can meet the needs of the individuals who live, vote, and pay taxes here. Muskegon is a city back from the brink, and I will be the first to acknowledge this. There has been incredible movement forward, and there is so much to be proud of. We need to keep moving forward. We cannot and should not stop the progress that has been made. But we are in a position now to make better deals for the people who already live here. We no longer need to court developers with sweetheart deals to entice them in. In fact, if you look at some of the other candidates' campaign finance reports, it is clear that the developers are courting us. We should not be offering to waive sewer connection fees for developers at the same time as we are requiring residents to cover a sewer fund shortage to the tune of a 25% sewer rate increase. A thriving and successful community requires that we are welcoming to a range of individuals. While we all want job creators and innovators to come invest in Muskegon, we also need to make sure that we can sustain a working class. Every CEO needs an army of workers at all pay levels to keep a business going. Restaurant owners need dishwashers as much as they need managers. Muskegon is running a risk of costing out the regular folks as rental prices escalate well beyond what even two people earning minimum wage can afford. At the same time, purchasing a house has become increasingly more difficult as more and more housing stock flows into the short-term rental market to support the growing tourist industry. A thriving Muskegon can and should benefit the whole community. Equity, justice, and inclusion are as important as commerce and economics. Good governance is collaborative and sometimes needs to move slowly to allow everyone a voice at the table. This requires vocal and involved commissioners who are responsive to the voters while offering guidance to and requiring accountability from the city staff. I intend to be that commissioner for the people of Muskegon, and I hope I have your support. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Page.
Yeah, well, this is my second time running for office, and my first run was based more on a transparency and accountability, but this run I had more specific goals, and they were protect our parks, protect our housing, and protect our money. And in protect our parks, that basically comes down to if it's anything in our Muskegon park system, and you want to put a private business on that parkland for a long-term period, put it before a vote of the people like your charter says. That's all. I mean, many things have been announced about Pere Marquette, how many different developments and everything. Just put it before a vote of the people. Let the people decide if that's something that they want. We shouldn't be afraid of that. Protect our housing. I've expanded on that a little bit with shoring up our first-time housing program, and same thing with protect our money. I've talked a little bit about already about the commission's misspending amongst the city staff, and then commission not holding staff accountable for that spending. Muskegon's been on an economic juggernaut lately. And one of the things I've noticed is some of the things are key points of government: fire, police, health and sanitation, and elections. Those are key components of a local government. In our fire departments, we definitely need a higher staffing level. You can't have two people on an engine. It's unsafe for them to go into buildings when they respond. They have to wait for another vehicle just to show up to make egress. Police, I think our public safety department does a wonderful job, but all I have to do is look at our scanner pages and things to know about the shootings, and also to be told by our constituents themselves stories about them, to know that our city streets still need some safety looking out. Health and sanitation, we shut down a public health facility in the middle of a pandemic. And that just angered me when to shut the bathrooms in our hand washing facilities in the middle of a pandemic at our farmers market. Just unconscionable. And elections, I experienced an election snafu myself in this last election. So I really think that we need to look at our four core areas of government, and I hope to be your candidate to rectify in those areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sybenga.
Sure, thank you. We didn't get much time to tell our stories tonight, besides where we like to go in Muskegon. So I'd like to share a little bit of mine. My wife, Sarah, and I moved to the Amazon Apartments 18 years ago and bought our yellow house on 154 campus the next year after we fell in love with Muskegon. We saw so much potential and the opportunity to get involved and make a difference. The Muskegon Mall was in the middle of being torn down, and Imagine Muskegon had just cast a long-term vision that aligned with the vibrant, diverse communities we had experienced prior to moving here. I immediately got involved in the Nelson Neighborhood Improvement Association and soon was working in downtown Muskegon development after receiving my master's in public administration. Those were 5 amazing years of meeting so many people and hearing so many stories related to hopes and opportunities for the city of Muskegon. After I became the Dean of Workforce Development at Muskegon Community College in 2011, I thought it was a good time to take my experience in downtown development and serving on numerous public city boards and run for commission. I was elected in 2013, and it's been an honor to serve since that time. My vision for the city has always been about realizing the amazing potential around us in the form of our natural location, our neighbors, our built environment, our skills and talents, and creating synergy between those to achieve vibrancy and prosperity. City government over the past 8 years has been good about working with all of our stakeholders to establish and accomplish long-term goals or visions that mesh with those priorities. From 2016 to 2021, we had a long-term plan that achieved incredible results related to housing, image, quality of life, and revitalizing revenues. This year, we engaged in an extensive process to look at our long-term goals and arrived at 13 action items in those same areas, but this time with a particular social equity, housing, and youth education focus area. I'm extremely excited and energized by this shared vision that we've come to together and know we can accomplish it because the team of City Hall staff, residents, city stakeholders, and elected officials have achieved amazing measurable results the last 5 years. This truly is a team effort, and I'm extremely motivated to continue to serve as an at-large commissioner to see this further progress accomplished. I have distinct, relevant experience in leadership roles, making big things happen, and I look forward to working with everyone involved to continue to move the City of Muskegon forward if re-elected. We are at a precipice, having finally gained some momentum after a 70-year population slide. Let's continue to realize the full potential of our city. I want to thank those who are running for your investment of time and commitment, for those who are here on the Zoom and listening to the recording, for your care and concern for the city, and I know we're going to continue to achieve amazing things. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gorman.
I'm running for commission because I trust Muskegon. Muskegon is my passion, and I believe that our prosperity should continue, not come to an end. I've seen firsthand the impact collaborative partnerships between our residents, the private sector, and local government can have on increasing the quality of life accessible to residents. These collaborations not only impact the physical structures in our community, but also as much of the attitudes and lifestyles of the people that live here. As we move forward together, we need to continue to take care of the assets and investments of our existing infrastructure and places around the city that our community values. While development has brought and will continue to bring new residents to our city, like we've talked about tonight, we need to do what we can to support our existing residents to stay where they are. These actions might look like what we've mentioned, including expanding current home improvement programs and making them more accessible, and growing and developing these long-term to support other housing needs like roof repair. I also want to work to help promote better communication between city staff and residents. While there are subjective issues residents genuinely have, our city is ahead of the curve on so much and needs to do a better job communicating these successes to our residents. No resident should feel left behind. I will work to maintain water access for all residents while balancing environmental and social sustainability. We are seeing in real time an exciting development unfold in NIMS with Adelaide Point. But what's more important to me has been the city's insistence that public access remain on Muskegon Lake. Equity and inclusion and a booming economy are not exclusive to each other. Rather, a strong economy will help foster better equity and inclusion. When our city declines, our residents hurt. When our city grows, our residents are uplifted. While no individual program is perfect, taken together, they change some of the very changes some of my opponents say are lacking and want to see in the city are already underway. Just because the mundane is not routinely in the news or paraded around town does not mean that positive outcomes are not happening. The path we are on as a community is a path I think we should remain on. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Gorman, my apologies. I was ruffling my papers there and I thought I was on mute. So I apologize if I interfered with your statement there. So that brings us to the end of our program. Thank you, candidates. Thank you, sponsors. Thank you, organizers. And thank you, the good people of Muskegon, for attending tonight. A healthy democracy is a precious gift, and that has been mentioned a lot this evening. It takes much time, attention, and effort of citizens and elected officials alike to keep it healthy and functioning. You helped democracy tonight by being here. So be sure to vote on November 2nd. Ooh.
Victoria just got muted.
Thank you.
I heard you say be sure to vote November 2nd.
Be sure to vote on November 2nd, and you can follow up with any of the candidates using the contact information shown on the screen. And I believe Chris Willis will also be sending contact information. So good luck And good night. I will be keeping tabs on November 2nd on the election. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks much.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Thank you, everyone.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Be well all.
Good night.